I really thought I had the theme song nailed down that time, but I don't. We'll save it for a better day, for another day.
I really enjoyed it.
Anyway, thank you. Thank you. It was like a little intro in there. Hello, everyone else, and welcome to Fiji Forever, silent podcast, almost spoiler-free recap of Survivor Fiji. While we wait for Survivor 44 to premiere in March, I will be spending the off-season recapping one of my favorite seasons of all time, Survivor Fiji. Today, we'll be covering episode 3. This isn't Survival, it's Thrival, which originally aired on February 22nd, 2007. Joining me today is a podcaster for RHAP and post-show recaps, as well as a pronoun advocate fighting for the liberation of all people. Who else could it be but Brooklyn Zed?
Hello.
Hi, Zed. Hello.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm in the RHAP and post-show recaps universes, and yet I don't think I've ever formally talked about Survivor on a podcast.
Oh my God. So this is a big moment for both of us because I was so excited when you told me you were interested in being on an episode because we've done one RHAP special together and I think that's it so far. And then, but I loved having a conversation with you and Rob and Matthew Yazzie. So I'm very happy that we get to continue that into this episode of Survivor Fiji, which is one of my favorite seasons. I don't feel like this episode isn't particularly my favorite, but you're one of my favorites. So I feel like we'll have fun either way.
For sure.
Yes. How are you though?
I'm good. As I was just telling you before we got started, I'm taking a little mini vacation from work right now because I work on Broadway. So we don't get a vacation over the holidays like a lot of people do. In fact, we work more than usual over the holidays. So I'm taking a few days off, taking it easy, which is good because it meant I had time to watch the episodes up to this point. I was like, oh, good. Episode 3. Okay, I can watch 3 episodes before we do a podcast.
Don't you love how it works out that way?
Yeah, I was like, oh boy, did I just commit myself to watching like half a season in the next 3 days? No, thank goodness. Okay.
I did that with Survivor Traders UK, but I didn't have to write notes for that. That was just for my viewing pleasure. So I can understand the stress though.
Yeah. But I'm all caught up. I'm ready to go. I'm excited to be here.
Yay. I'm glad we're both excited. But Zed, I do have a question for you before we get into the actual episode. But what is this your first time watching Survivor Fiji? What's your relationship with the season? Any particular opinions on it either way? Without spoiling any of the actual outcomes of the season.
Sure. So I watched the first few seasons of Survivor live when they originally aired, and then I think I got into middle school or high school and became very busy doing school for a very long time. And I got back into Survivor completely by accident during Millennials versus Gen X when I was visiting my grandparents over Thanksgiving, and it was the 2-hour episode with the rock draw. And so all of a sudden it was just on for a very long time in the house, and I came back. And so after that, I went back and watched all the seasons on Hulu at the time. So I watched Survivor Fiji before, but it was probably only the once, and it was in a binge of all the seasons, and it was, 6 years ago?
Yeah.
So my memory is not super specific of the season, but even just watching it now, it's out of context, almost hard to appreciate how unique it is in its diversity, which I know is part of why you love it so much. Because there are so many different people on the show. And I think where you can see the difference compared to the more recent seasons is certainly in the editing. But it is just nice to see a bunch of different folks kind of trying to figure out how to literally, it's how are you going to get along with each other to survive, for better or for worse?
Yeah, it is quite an interesting season. I'm so excited to delve into this episode with you specifically because I think there's a lot to cover in the 45 minutes of content that was in this episode. But I also just, looking at the grand scheme of things for the Survivor Fiji, this is where we start seeing, I feel like, some of the bigger personalities starting to pop up, and we're starting to get a more clear picture of how things could possibly end up for both Moto and Ravu. I think next episode, episode 4, is when some things really come to a head, but I'm very excited for us to start looking at the seeds of all of the chaos that is the later episodes of Fiji in episode 3. So this was a good one to cover for a little more of an in-depth analysis. But Zed, since you have, just started your rewatch from, you previously watched it 6 years ago, but I'd love to know, what are your thoughts of so far in your second watch?
Definitely a lot of big characters.
Oh yeah.
I remembered Rocky, I remembered Anthony, I remembered Dreams and Yao Man. Obviously there's a very iconic moment that will come up later in the season that is unforgettable. But it's interesting to watch the women and their relationships. I know you talked in the previous episode about how like we've had no returnees from Fiji really, other than one person that I can recall. But we get to see these women having conversations and like doing things and making things happen. And Michelle gets the fire going, and Erica found the pineapple, and Rita's always just so excited that her friends are making things happen. So that's cool to see too, but it does feel like the really big characters, the ones we're seeing and hearing from the most, particularly in confessional, but also like just in bumping heads with each other a lot, are certainly some big boys.
Oh yes, the toxic masculinity of that comes out in Survivor Fiji is quite a real thing, and unfortunately it leads to our third woman in a row getting the boot this episode with robbed goddess Sylvia. And I feel so bad for Sylvia, because I think the women on Ravu in general get a raw deal of being on this tribe that is pushing like traditional masculinity strength, and why, like, we see in the first episode Rocky say, obviously we have to get rid of girl, and now we see here he's trying to, he did get rid of Erica last episode, and now he's switching gears to Anthony as someone that we need to get out, apparently because of tribal strength. But that did not come to fruition here. But I feel like Sylvia really got served a raw deal. If there's anyone that was robbed in Survivor Fiji, it's definitely Sylvia. Not saying that she wouldn't have gotten voted out if she didn't have all of these other circumstances happening, but spending 2 different times on Exile Island, being away from the camp for so long, being away from the camp, from her tribe, Ravu, in the first day while they're forming these relationships, and then coming back and trying to integrate herself to the tribe with very little success. It's really difficult here. And it's hard to see that, I'm not saying that we would have had a different winner had Sylvia gotten that same opportunity, but it's hard to digest the fact that she has, lost this opportunity for herself.
Right. Specifically, it was pointed out last week that, whoever it was, because she led the construction of the camp, that she was chosen as the leader to then pick the teams. And that seems like kind of a foreseeable outcome regardless of who it is. So in a way, you are very likely dooming that person who led the building of the camp to being stuck on the have-not tribe. And I do think she did a pretty good job of dividing the people up after, only knowing them a day. And it would be really unfortunate if she'd been like, oh, I'm going to make, because you can't make a stacked tribe and then, oh no, you're never going to end up on that tribe.
Yeah.
But even just having the resources versus not obviously makes a huge difference, both physically in your body, but also in morale. You're seeing everybody sitting around at the moto camp like, oh yeah, we're having a great time, we got too much rice, we're sleeping all day, we feel great. Like, are we even playing Survivor? We're just like hanging out, sitting at tables with silverware. And both to not have that and to know that somebody else does have that, I think is this like double whammy of just like such a damper on your spirit, on top of being malnourished and dehydrated and not sleeping well because you have no shelter. Although they have a pretty nice cave compared to a lot of other tribes.
They really said, all right, guys, we will get the hammock, the furniture, the silverware, the food, the flint, but you guys can have the cave, so you don't have to build another shelter.
Yeah. I feel like there is a season where the tribe that wins, or the person that was sent as the representative who won, got to choose, like, your camp can have the good shelter, or you can be close to like the food source or the water well, or one of those two things. But in this case, it's just like either you win or you lose, and there's no trade-off one way or the other.
Yeah.
So it's like there's no benefit to not getting to go to the cushy camp. It's just like, negative on top of negative, like compounding on each other.
Yeah, exactly. And this is, as much as I do love this season for many reasons, and I think the haves and the have-not twist makes for some very interesting character arcs moving forward that aren't particularly clear right now at this moment. So we won't go too deeply into them. But in terms of wanting to see Ravu rally together and pull out a win for themselves, it's very difficult here to see it, just how little they have, and then everyone acting surprised when they don't have a win.
Right.
And it's very difficult for them. I feel very bad for Ravu right now, and just like the disparity between the two camps. And I think production could have done something a little sooner so that we didn't have this repetitiveness so early in the episodes. But again, without spoiling anything, that will change in the next episode, episode 4. So there are, for people wondering, when is Ravu gonna catch a break? They kind of get one next episode, a little bit, if there is a break for Ravu to have. But
yeah,
before we get into the specific episode itself, we do want to say that we have a set of rules for this podcast, and we follow it with every episode. So we just want to reiterate for people that might not have been listening or watching right away. But this is, as I said at the beginning, it's an almost spoiler-free podcast. And by that, we means that we are not going to be spoiling the outcome of Survivor Fiji in the episode. We are mostly just talking about everything that happened in episode 3 and everything that happened before that led up to the events of episode 3. We're not spoiling anything like that. The one thing that we are going to discuss is that there is an all-Black alliance that is on Survivor Fiji. The edit did not show it, but it has a big impact on the season. And part of the reason that I wanted to do a recap podcast specifically of Survivor Fiji is because we wanted to give this alliance their due diligence and noticing the connections between the cast members and how this Black alliance plays into what we get later down the road. And so here it comes up a little bit, and we'll dive into it a little bit more. But again, we're not spoiling the placements of anybody in the Black alliance or anybody that might be affected by this bond in the All Black alliance. We lost Erica last episode, so now all the only Black players that are left are Anthony, Earl, Dreams, and Cassandra. And we get it a little bit here, a little bit. It comes into play, but there will be a larger impact down the line, and I'm very excited to when we get to talk about it extensively. But are you ready, Zed, to talk about survival, not thrival? Or
yeah,
it's not survival, it's thrival? One of those.
I mean, each tribe has one of those.
I know. I mean, does Ravu really have survival right now? They are just barely hanging
very
on.
barely, yeah.
Very barely.
Subsisting.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just like existing at this point. And I don't blame them at this point. If I had as little as they did, I would just be like a plank of wood on the ground. Like, no one bother me. I am just going to be a little sad sack, like a little inanimate object over there in the corner place in our little cave. So I can't, I don't blame any of them personally. I would probably also be, I would be up to here with it.
Yeah.
And when we start the episode, uh, you know, that's pretty much the storyline we get is that Ravu is still struggling. They just lost their second member and it is not going well for them. Still, Yauman is talking about how Ravu isn't connected quite as much as a tribe as they would like. Rocky says they're the biggest group of losers Survivor has ever seen. I think that's a really great way to describe how Yauman and Rocky are as individual characters on this season. Like what a poignant moment to see it from both of them. Very telling.
And was it in the first tribal council or this most recent one where like 5 different people got votes?
That was in
the first tribal,
the premiere. Yes.
Yeah, but either way, you can kind of tell that people are not totally aligned. They're not all on the same page. They're not in agreement about what's going to make the tribe stronger or who is a benefit to the tribe or not. The first tribals are always tough. It's like, I don't know, somebody, as long as it's not me, it's got to be somebody. And you just write down a name and hope that works. But I think Yauman's observation is right. And I think Rocky's observation is valid and wrong.
I wouldn't call them a group of losers. I think that they're going through a tough time right now, but it's a tough time by production's design. I don't think there's anything that Ravu could have done themselves to turn the tide in the situation for them. So
it's not a fair comparison.
It really isn't. We have had way bigger losers of tribes in future seasons that had way more than Ravu did. So, Ravu shouldn't be too hard on themselves. They're going to be, but they shouldn't. And something that we did discuss a little bit as in the last episode, and we're starting to see the results of it here, is that Earl was on Exile Island while this past tribal council was taking place. He was immune. He was not part of the vote. I think this is strongly part of the reason that Erica goes home over initially voting out Sylvia. But Earl gets back from camp, and the first thing that everyone asks them is, do you have water? Like, what did you bring for us back at this glorious place called Exile Island? And he's just got to figure out where this idol clue is, or he's only has the first 2 clues at this point. So he knows it's at the camp and that it's like connected to a high point, but that's about it.
Yeah, those first couple of clues are pretty weak. The first one is literally like, it's at camp.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That was imagine?
Like almost a given.
I feel for them. So in Cook Islands, the idol was at Exile Island. And that's why part of the reason why Yule found it is because he was at Exile Island so much. So one of the benefits of Exile Island, other than in this case being immune, is that you have all the time in the world to look for the idol if you so choose to. But with here, for Sylvia and Earl, they get to the Exile Island hoping to, spend some time getting the idol. And the first thing they hear is it's at camp. I can't imagine that devastation.
Yeah. It's like, well, now the rest of your time here is just a waste. Or like, if you can appreciate being away from a lot of loud people for a while, maybe that is its own kind of reprieve. But if the trade-off was going to be, oh, you go get an idol, but that's not the deal this time. And then in this episode, you're no longer even immune by being at Exile Island. So like the reward or like the trade-off is even less even than it was before, where like you got a clue and you were immune from tribal. Now you get a clue, but you're not immune, but also the clue is not here. So you're just going to sit and wait.
I gotta admit though, the clue this round was really good. You know, it was the clue, the third clue that we get from the for Exile Island for the Idol this episode is pretty much says it is at the cave. It's like it is where you sleep. And I think that if this were any new school season, the idol would have been found by now with that clue. But unfortunately, Sylvia did not find it. Unfortunately for Sylvia, I personally, while I feel for Sylvia, I'm really happy Anthony did not go here.
Yeah, I like Anthony as well. And I wonder if, I mean, not that someone from the other tribe was ever going to go, but if someone from the other tribe went, if eventually that third clue would have to be something different and they would like preload it with like location specific to the other tribe.
It must be because, and this comes into play later on, so we won't say anything about that. But my guess is that they have a whole other list of clues for the Moto camp, and there's something on that island similar to the cave, or I guess there was a cave there, so it must be under that spot for it. But they're aware of where the idol will be, you know, like they'll have something similar, but they don't go to Exile Island at this point, so they have no idea that the idol is there. They don't know that there's an idol at their camp, but also like they don't really need it right now. Yeah. They'll need it eventually, but not right now, not in this current moment.
Yeah.
Yes. But then before we get to the reward challenge, there was one spark of hope here, and that is that Michelle was able to make fire finally. I think she used Yao Man's glasses to do this, or Anthony's, someone's glasses.
Somebody's glasses,
yeah. And so she was able to use their glasses once the sun came up to the top to get a flame, and she brought it to Anthony to put where all the kindling was and made this big fire. So they finally got their fire, and I was so happy for it. Even though I knew they didn't win either of these challenges, I was just like so happy for them that they had this moment. Like they can boil water.
Yeah, that's seriously. So that is such a game changer. And it's like so wild to me that like on top of everything else in this, you know, it used to be the one benefit of going to tribal council was, okay, well now we have fire to take back to camp. And they were like, no, you can't even have that. No fire for you. You must suffer as much as possible.
Yeah, they were like, you have to get your flint when you make fire. Like you have to earn it. I'm like, these people are dying. Like Jeff, like you guys are literally killing them. They can give them flint. I'm assuming seasons like this is why they changed that rule to when you go to tribal council, you get flint. But that was so rude of them. It's just another thing. That was unforgivable to me, because why? They already are dealing with so much, and you won't even give them flint until they make the fire themselves.
Yeah. And like, how are they supposed to, you know, this is a metaphor for life, but how are they supposed to succeed if you won't give them anything like to start with? And if even the things that don't work out for them don't have the benefits that they're supposed to have.
Yes, and it's very disappointing that this is how the first few episodes of the season are defined. It's basically just, on one hand, Ravu is struggling and it sucks and it's very rough for them. And then on the other side, Moto is just once again enjoying themselves. That is pretty much all we get at this point. Like that is their segment before the reward challenge is, guys, if you were wondering, like we're still having a lovely time over here.
So good.
It's great. We're very blessed to be at this camp.
And we're actually going to gain weight by the time we get off of the show.
Why? There's no reason for them to have all of this shit at their camp. It's just complete overkill. And I don't know. I get that the haves not twist is supposed to kind of like play it up a bit, but they could have played it down a tad, in my opinion.
Yeah. Survivor we are the haves and Survivor is the have-nots. You don't need to like
that is true.
Further break it down on the show.
It's not great. Not great. Not a great outcome for them. But that's pretty much that's just what we got from Moto there, is that they're still really enjoying all of the things they got that they earned from winning one immunity challenge. One. Yeah. By like seconds after or before Ravu. Like, it was that close. And that's another thing that bothers me, is that this could have been a really compelling pre-merge set of challenges if they even the scales a little bit more, because Sylvia did such a good job creating the teams.
Right. And do one world at this camp.
That, right? Or like, I feel like there should be some incentive to, like what you were saying about how like it should be either, if you win immunity, you get to choose, do you go to tribal council, do you get the nice camp, or at some point you're going to have to like make that decision. Or like for Sylvia's case, I really think they should have been, Sylvia places a bet on what tribe is going to win the first challenge. And if they win, then she goes with them and she gets to be a part of the nice camp. Or if they don't win, she goes with them to the have-not camp. And that is it feels a little more in control, but opposed to what they actually did was just basically guarantee that she was not going to get the nice camp.
Right. So far, it has been a lot of the players do not get to make decisions. And this is something Rob always talks about, that Survivor is at its best when you leave decisions in the players' hands. Yes. And this has been a lot of, Sylvia had to make very big decisions right off the bat, but then, her agency was taken away after that point.
Yeah, that's actually very well put. And that's part of the reason why this is such a big concern of mine, why it's such a big issue, not just in this season, but in future seasons of Survivor, where, we can say that Ravu was a bad tribe because they aren't winning anything right now, but also they had so little and the other tribe had so much that it just seems very clear that no matter who got that nice camp, that was what was going to happen anyway. And it doesn't really feel like it's really not a fair fight, but it doesn't feel like they're losing because of their talents or weaknesses. They're losing because they are dehydrated and that they haven't eaten in many days.
Right. Yeah. It's like, this has almost nothing to do with tribe makeup and almost entirely to do with production setup.
Yeah. And one of the things I really like about Fiji is the variety of challenges we get throughout the season, which makes it more compelling if we had the playing field evened a bit between the two tribes. See, here we get a reward challenge where they get to win either fishing gear, fruit, or their comfort items. I loved I wish we got like a zoom in on everybody's comfort items, like who brought what. Mm-hmm. And I was very sad about that. But this challenge, Zed, I'm obsessed with this challenge. It's a slip and slide.
Absolutely ridiculous. Well, but the thing is, it's so long. I feel like there are other seasons where like you can grab the ball as you're sliding, and then by the time you get up, you're basically at the end. This time it felt like every single person had to like tiptoe their way halfway there. And Jeff was being so mean about it. He's like, they're taking their time. They're tiptoeing. He used the word gingerly several times. And I was like, what do you want them to do? Because it's really slippery, Jeff. What do you want?
It's like the Big Brother one that they do where it's like very long, and that's on purpose because of like what the challenge is, because it's an endurance one. This is supposed to be like kind of one and done. And then once they get to the end, they have to put the ball from their specific number into a basket after they just, I assume, had a brush with death in this moment here, because that was a very terrifying and also hilarious challenge. It was great. Just beautifully done.
Sylvia fell and busted her ass, and now she's taking forever to like try and get over here. Like, this is so embarrassing.
I know.
She's going up against gets so many free shots while she's just tiptoeing over here. I'm like, Jeff, You just
Calm
pointed
down.
out that she fell. Like, I
She
think
fell
probably she's
on,
in pain.
yeah, she fell on soap. What else do you want from her? Like, I find that would be very difficult to get up from, personally. I don't know. But I feel so bad because this obviously weighed on Sylvia, who is already so behind everybody else in terms of social capital on Ravu. But I love this challenge, except for Sylvia's sad moment here. But it is so funny. I wish we got more of it. We need more challenges like this in the new school Survivor, because when they have as much as they do now and they do challenges like this, it would be so funny.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be a great time. That was something I kind of noticed overall in watching the episodes is like how much of the time is devoted to challenges versus other things feels like
Yeah.
less in a nice way. I mean, we get a 2-minute recap of the previous episode at the
I
start. I was
know.
like, "Oh, wow. This is you're still explaining." Okay. And then we get the full title credits and then we get these camp life scenes. And I kind of liked the pacing of it, that like we spent some time hanging out, we checked in with people, then we do this goofy little reward challenge, then we
Mm-hmm.
get to spend some more time with people, then we do our immunity challenge, and tribal council isn't 15 minutes long.
Yeah, it was short and sweet and to the point. All things that I love in a tribal council. And also, the Exile Island, the idol things, they've probably been maybe like a minute to 2 minutes each, like in each segment. Even with the Exile Island excerpts in there. I think Earl's was a little bit longer because it was his first introduction to tribal council and they has his moments with the snakes and everything. But it was like so little time focused on advantages or people talking about advantages. And in this episode, the main storyline was, once Sylvia went to Exile Island, she got another clue. She has an idea now of where the idol is. So once they get back to camp, she's got to find an opportunity to dig it up. And it's great. That was, again, very to the point. We get a little segment where she may or may not have found the idol, but then we find out she clearly didn't because she didn't play one at tribal council. But it was just much. It's just the pacing is so refreshing here. Like I yearn for the days where we get a reward and an immunity challenge, and they're not replicas of the challenges that we had 2 days ago.
Right. Not an obstacle course ending in a puzzle or an endurance challenge where you stand there and hold a thing, which seems to be 90% of the challenges we get in modern Survivor.
Yeah. I cannot tell you how embarrassingly happy I was when they brought Last Gas back in 43. I'm like, oh my God, variety. And also I love this challenge.
Or the Russell Swan passes out challenge? Who had that on their bingo card? Not me.
I really did not. Yeah, that was a surprise. The Sophie Clark Memorial Challenge was also a favorite of mine. So I do enjoy the challenges that they brought back. I hope that's a sign that we'll get more like that in the future, but I am not hopeful.
Yeah, it's like you've had plenty of good ideas, and there are things you can do that are not the same things you do every single time in modern Survivor. I mean, we don't need to see anybody like bashing each other in like the way that I feel like James got injured one season, or like Stephanie LaGrossa hit her head, I think, in that one where they're like throwing the ball in the pit and then somebody has to like chuck it across the field.
Yeah.
Like, we don't need those like dangerous ones that a lot of people got injured with, but there's still so many other cool things you can do, including like a goofy slip and slide.
Yeah. And I feel like the slip and slide probably takes a little bit longer to set up, but it certainly can't take any longer than the crazy obstacle courses that they make now. And the delicacies challenge that we get later in the episode is like, you get a podium, you have some plates, and you get the little, what are those things? The cloche. The cloche. I only know that because Benoit Blanc said it in The Glass Onion. So, or was it him? Maybe it was him. It was him or the Ed Norton character. I can't remember. But yes, whoever said cloche, thank you, because that's how I remembered it. And yeah, so that's literally all you need for the delicacies challenge. It is not a lot of like physical labor into getting that. So I just wish we had more challenges like that, because I don't need every challenge to be this complicated, you know, obstacle course, like bamboo version of those inflatable challenges, like those inflatable things that you have at like kids' birthday parties and everything.
Yeah.
Like it's just not, it's unnecessary.
I will say, while we're talking about the challenges, that I think this version of the, I'm going to call it exotic or perhaps local food eating challenge, because I feel like we refer to it as gross, and that's like really offensive
I don't like,
to the
yeah,
communities that they're from. This one was almost not that bad most of the way through. The first like 3 things that came up, everybody's just like, okay, and we eat them. I think then we got to
yeah,
fish eyes and people got a little upset. And pig snouts, I in particular have struggled to even look at. But I think the reason we haven't seen it that much is because it does come up as like, I can't believe people eat this and this is so disgusting. And it's like
yeah,
pretty culturally insensitive. But I
yeah,
think if there was a way that it can be brought in as like experiencing the culture the way that we used to do in these older seasons so much more,
yeah,
as we're going to see later in this season in another one of like the best moments in Survivor. um I think that would be kind of a great way to bring back some of the like old school connection to the place that you're in,
yeah.
without it being this like, this is so foreign and therefore it's disgusting.
Yeah,
um
I actually do think this is one of the better delicacies challenges, because it's like, yeah, like it's there was the giant clam, the octopus, the pig snout. I can see, honestly, I don't think that one would be like that difficult, other than the fact, like I feel like it's just very chewy pork.
yeah,
If you can say it like that in your
right.
head internally and get through it, it
Yeah,
probably,
sometimes there are people who are just like, "That's bacon, baby. Just eat that. That's
yeah,
bacon." I mean, I've been a vegetarian for 20 years, so I have my
yes,
own issues with eating these things in general, just on a meat level, but not on a cultural level.
yeah,
It did seem like all the stuff they picked was all like really chewy things. None
yeah.
of it was gonna be fast.
And actually, while we're on that subject too, one of the things that, as many times as I've rewatched Fiji, it did not stick with me until this rewatch that I just had with this episode. But Earl and Anthony both point out during the challenge that it was very hard for them to finish the meal in a fast time without having water. Like you can't swallow
Yeah.
something that chewy when you don't have any water. And as we know, Rabu has already been
They're
severely
licking
dehydrated.
leaves. They're
They are licking
struggling.
leaves to
They
get
didn't have any
by.
leaves to lick. What do
I
you
know,
expect?
I know. What do they do when it doesn't rain? They're just
Yeah.
dry and thirsty all the whole time. It's very sad.
Awful.
So
Yeah.
it's just another thing where even when you're thinking, okay, here's a challenge that they could potentially win because it's not a physical one, you just are
Right.
eating. And I'm sure everyone there wants to eat. But again, something that they are disadvantaged in is because they have gone so long without water in this challenge.
Yeah, for sure. And like it's not something you'd think of right off the top. It's like they haven't been eating. They'll be so, and it gets talked about at the start of the challenge. Like, you guys are just excited to have food. And they're like, yeah, we are.
Yeah.
But that is different than like the reality of actually trying to eat that food when you are probably have a rather dry mouth without,
Yeah.
going into too much detail.
Is there anything from the delicacies challenge that you feel like you would excel at if you had to?
No,
No?
not at all. I've always said that that would be one of my weaknesses. I've always been more interested in doing The Amazing Race than Survivor, but
Oh,
that is
that's
always
fair.
something I've seen that would be a struggle for me. And I know it's mostly mind over matter, but I like to try new things, but when if
Yeah.
it looks gross to my brain, I definitely struggle a little bit.
Yeah, I think part of the issue here is that it's a race and like I am not particularly a fast eater,
Yeah.
but I do also like trying new foods. But something like the giant clam or the octopus, I think would be fairly easy to eat, just not necessarily eat fast, because that does feel like those are very chewy foods. And then I don't know, maybe I'm giving myself too much credit, but I think I might be able to eat the pig snout or oh, you know what it is? The fish eyes. Those look so tiny. I feel
Yeah,
like
that's
those you could
true.
just I feel like if you don't chew them, and maybe it's a little harder for them because they don't have the water there, but I feel like you could do the like, like just kind of pop one in at a
Yeah, and I
time or
think
just put
that's
them
like
in.
what was it Edgardo who was just like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not going to chew them. I'm just going to swallow them like
Yep.
pills,
Yeah.
basically.
I think that would be the one that's like, okay, I could do this. I could do this one.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest struggles for me, our dear friends Josh Wigler and Kevin Mahadeo are on vacation right now, and I have seen a lot of pictures on Instagram of the food that they are eating, and so much of the food still looks like what it was when it was alive, and that is hard for me.
That it's really hard to eat something with a face or
Yeah.
something that looks like it was when it was alive.
They
Yeah, that can
zoomed
be
in
very
on that
difficult.
octopus tentacle, and I was just like, it probably tastes fine. And like the texture's probably not that bad, but I can't deal with the fact that it still looks like an octopus.
I actually love one of my favorite spots in Boston when I go up there for day trips has like this grilled octopus that it looks still like an octopus tentacle, but it's so delicious. And they have it with like potatoes and everything. So that would be mine. But it's also like very, it's very chewy. I think that would just be hard to keep down in terms of like being dehydrated and finishing the octopus. I think could be difficult in like a competition setting, but when I'm just like sitting down enjoying it, it's lovely. I quite enjoy
Hmm.
it. But I can understand why that's not everyone's cup of tea. I'm a little bit of a uh I don't know, something that's one of my not weaknesses. Like I could not swim if I was on Survivor. Like I can swim, but not very well. So I would probably be voted out early for that reason. But if there's an eating challenge, I feel like that is where my redemption story is.
There you
Unless you
go.
give me something that's still alive, I do not want any part of that.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
thank you.
that's my big no on Survs. Like it's okay. I don't need to win. Vote me out. It's fine.
Boundaries are healthy, you know?
Boundaries are very healthy, especially when you're trying to make me eat a maggot or something like that. I'm like, don't, no, it's still alive. It's not, it's fine. I don't need $1 million. I do, but like not that bad. It's like it's fine, guys. I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yep.
One of my favorite moments of this challenge. So we have the taunting that happens because Mookie's so excited
Oh,
that he won. This is not my favorite moment. But and Boo is upset, and then Rocky is. I love that you put in the notes. Rocky fights back because of course he does, which is so accurate. Um, but then, things are getting a little more serious and a little more heated. And Papa Smurf and Anthony get up there and they're like staring each other down. And there's this incredible like sound effect that happens because Anthony just like raises his eyes at Papa Smurf. And there's like a little cymbal crash in the background. It makes it so like over dramatic that it made me laugh really hard, especially because
oh
he's
my
about to lose.
I know. I feel so bad for Anthony that he lost here, but I also am happy for Papa Smurf that he got a moment of victory here when he had been through so much pain
Yeah, he's
earlier in the
struggling.
episode.
Yeah.
But so it was hard. I just wish these two didn't have to face off against each other, but I'm glad for Papa Smurf and very sad for Anthony. I have to ask though before we get to we have some other stuff we have to cover before we get to like the final part of the episode. But in the Boo versus Rocky debate here, whose side are you on? Or are they just
Gosh.
both right? Or are they both wrong? I mean,
I mean, I
they're
think they're
probably
kind
both wrong.
well,
Like,
I kind of think they're both right because I get being upset by the taunting. I totally do, and I wouldn't feel good about it if I were on that side either. But I also get if you've been losing and losing and losing and losing and like everything is literally against you, when you finally succeed at something, it's exciting, and like
Yeah.
it's not personal towards them really. You're just like letting off some steam a little bit.
Yeah.
You have been put here to compete against this other tribe, and it's like, yes, we finally did it, or I finally did something. So I can see it from both sides.
Yeah. You are much more diplomatic than me about this because I rewatched it. I rewatched this episode today, so it's very fresh in my mind. And far, like, this is, I never will look for an opportunity to side with Rocky. Like that is not, he is not my favorite contestant this season. On the other hand, though, immediately when Boo started talking, my thought was immediately, Boo, shut up. Like
let them have this.
Let them have, I know you guys you're talking about half of your confessionals about how you're going to gain weight, how you're so full, and that you guys are thriving. Boo actually gets the title of this episode with this quote, it's not survival, it's thrival.
Yeah.
So it's like, you guys
he's like the guiltiest of this.
I know. Like, you are living your best life over at Moto, and they don't know exactly how little they have because they haven't been over to the Rabu camp yet, but they have it really rough over there. So I think Boo can calm down quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's not that deep, Boo. It's fine. Let them have this. They're gonna lose anyway, but
right. Like, your feelings are valid, nice. And you can keep them to yourself.
I know, exactly. This is not the time nor the place for that type of sportsmanship, especially when like you guys have been winning everything. Like, it's very easy to say that you guys have been respectful the whole time when you guys have not lost a single challenge, mostly because of how much things you've been offered.
Yeah.
So I'm Team Rocky on this one. Like, it is partially like, maybe they went a little over the top here, but Team Rocky on this argument over here. Boo needs to chill out a little bit. It's very easy to say what is like good sportsmanship when you're winning everything.
Yeah, I don't think you get to decide.
No, absolutely not. So that is just not what I agree with here. I think that I will never be Team Rocky again, but in this part, yes, Team Rocky, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a little annoying so far, but it's gonna get so much worse without spoiling anything. Like, right now, he's mostly funny.
I know, he's actually very mellow in these first few episodes. Like, obviously, I don't like that he wanted to get rid of Erica, and I don't like that he has been voting out, he's wanted to get rid of Jessica, then Erica, and then now he wants to get rid of Anthony. And but like at this point in the season, he's mostly pretty funny. And even when they lose the challenge, they lost, but for I don't think I actually stated it, but Ravu loses again both the reward and the immunity challenge. But even when Sylvia's like apologizing for her performance in the reward challenge because she didn't get the chance to do that right after the reward because she got sent to Exile Island, Rocky then was like, yeah, it's like just the best you can do. Like, what are you going to do at this point? I'm like, I'm very surprised that he was like very mellow relatively mellow for Rocky reaction.
Because he has no energy because he's not eating and he's not drinking anything.
He fought with Boo, and then he lost all of his energy for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm. That was it.
Yep. Pretty much. But there are a couple things that happen in between the reward and the immunity challenge. One of which is that Sylvia does get sent to exile. As you said earlier, Zed, they are not immune. Whoever got sent to Exile Island was not immune this round. And that is really bad for Sylvia right now. But the plus side here is that the clue that she gets from Exile Island is really good because it says, when night has fallen and the tribe is asleep, you'll find it under the cave's threshold if you dig deep. So basically saying the highest point of the cave's threshold, you find it, you dig a hole, you will find the idol in there.
Yeah,
now,
pretty
Earl
straightforward.
Yes. And the only people that know about this part of it. You could tell they really wanted Sylvia to get this idol here for the drama of it all, but that this was a huge clue. So basically saying you get, once it's dark out, get the, dig at the cave threshold, find the highest point, dig underneath it, you'll find the idol.
Yeah.
And she knows she has to find a time to dig up the idol. She has to find like the perfect opportunity. But girl, once you lose immunity, who cares about decorum at this point? You dig your little heart out here. Yeah. And so I feel bad for her, but also I'm like, girl, what are you doing? Like, this is very serious right now.
Right. And because and she senses that she's in trouble.
Yeah.
So you got to be scrambling, doing anything you can at this point to try and save yourself. And it went from the clues being like, it's at camp. It's at camp down low.
Yeah.
Okay, dig under the cave and you will find it. Like, this is exactly where it is, and all you have to do is dig for it.
Yeah. Dig under the cave at the highest point, this coordinates, and dig. Yeah. It was pretty. They might as well have painted a big X where
go to where there's an X painted at the entrance to your cave, and you will find the idol.
And she uses this tiny coconut shell to like play dig, like she's just like bored and needs something to stimulate her mind and everything. I'm like, girl, that is way too graceful to be trying to find an idol there. This is tribal council. There's $1 million on the line. Dig and dig deep. This is like holes, like the movie Holes, where you're like, just keep on digging. That's what you need to be doing right there. Channel your inner holes, please. That's probably wrong. I shouldn't say that, but like that, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yep. So there was a lot happening there, but yeah, so I think they actually had a really good clue, for a very obvious clue for Exile Island. I don't like how it's like for each round there's a new clue instead of like Sylvia. I think Earl, when he got sent to Exile Island the first time, should have gotten the first clue, like the same one that Sylvia got her first time, where it says it's at camp. But instead he got the one about finding like the threshold, like the highest point or something is going to be an indicator of it. And then Sylvia, she comes back for her third time and then gets the third clue instead of the second clue because she was there for 2 times. So that part also annoys me.
Right.
Yeah. Just not a huge fan of that.
Or it's like, work together with the one other person who knows it's at camp. Like, maybe Earl can help get people away from the cave so that you can dig for it. I don't know.
I know. I don't know. See, the one issue that I have with that here is because I think Earl just really wants Sylvia to go, in part because she's the only person with the idol, the only other person that knows that the idol is back at camp. And he does not yet know how good of a clue that she had just received. So I think this is a little bit of a hard spot for Sylvia, but at the same time, girl, at this point, just dig. Like, Sylvia, dig, please, girl. It's like, we've had there's money on the line. Like, I would dig for an idol for like $5 at this point. You can do it for $1 million.
Yeah. The goal is stay one more day and then figure it out from there at this point. If you're that close to going, like, you're not going to ruin your chances by being like, oh, well, I know where it is and now I'm going to dig for it. Like, you gotta do it. And like, Earl has the right idea here of, well, she's the only other one who knows. So if I vote her out, then I'm the only one who knows.
Yeah.
That's the right move for him, for sure. But I just feel like there are more things she could have tried, including being like, we can have our Exile Island alliance, which, he wouldn't have gone for, but you gotta try.
Yeah. All right. Even like recruiting some of the people on the bottom, like talk to Anthony and Earl, because Earl clearly was, we'll get into Rabu's strategizing after the immunity challenge in a bit, but Earl clearly does not seem down to vote for Anthony. Rita doesn't want to vote for Anthony or Sylvia. So get some people together, say, I know where the idol's located. I need time to dig it out. Why don't we vote out Rocky? Why don't we vote out Mookie? Why don't we vote out someone that like isn't going to, that isn't going to be part of like a core alliance or anything. So like if I find it, I can use it to save myself and then like vote out one of them or something. But she doesn't do that.
Yeah. Well, and in fairness to her, like the idol is still a pretty new concept.
Yeah.
She didn't get to see Cook Islands, or certainly not all of it, and not that it even really factored in there anyway. Strategy has not evolved around idol usage the way that we know it to be 30 seasons later.
Yeah, this is true. And also because of the fact that this is the first time that the idol is used in this way, where you play it before the votes are read, but after you cast your vote.
Right.
This is an even newer concept for the people. They don't know the outcome of Cook Islands because of the time that they went there. But when Cook Islands started, their idol was played after the votes were read, which is just way too overpowered. So this is kind of like the sweet spot for it.
Yeah, it's like a literal get out of jail free card in the way that they had it for the first couple of seasons.
Yeah, it was too much. Well, yeah, it was too much. I remember when it was first introduced, where in Guatemala when Gary played it for himself, but it was before the votes were even cast, and I like that even less than doing it after the votes are read, because just why? Like, it's not fun. It literally just like keeps you there another day and is not particularly helpful in that regard. But it's fine because now we have this format and I like it much better.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the one other piece of drama before we get to the final segments of this episode was that Gary had a really bad fall during the reward challenge, during the slip and slide. And when he got back to the camp, he was talking about how he had a really difficult time having a deep breath. So they're very worried about, they're saying it might be like a broken rib or something around that regard. That's what it sounded like to me when I was hearing them talk about it. I don't want to diagnose it myself or anything like that, but I definitely worried for Gary here.
Yeah, well, and I think he says, I've cracked some ribs before, I've broken ribs before, and this is what that felt like. So I think that's what's going on. I'm surprised that like it feels like medical is pretty hands off here, or we're just not seeing it. But similarly with like the stuff that's going on with Boo in the previous episode, where he's got something in his eye and they're like, okay, I'm gonna pour coconut water on it or something, and it's like, we gotta help this man. Like, get him some proper eye wash before you have a man with an infected eye on your TV show.
I just imagine them coming in assuming they're going to have to treat Boo again, and then all of a sudden it's, oh yeah, Papa Smurf is struggling right now.
Oh, so an actual problem. Okay.
Yes. It's like, are you kidding me? Another, and this is the nice camp too. You know who's not getting into all of these shenanigans? Rabu.
Right, because they literally can't afford, well, they don't have the energy to, and they can't afford to.
Nope. They don't even have the tools to really injure themselves at this point. Nope. This is where Moto is starting to just become victims of their own design with some of this. It is not clearly Gary's fault that he got injured during the challenge. And I can understand, like, he's a bigger guy. He was older. And the confessional with Cassandra here, where she is talking about how, you know, she has tears in her eyes where she's talking about is that she knows that this is like a passion for Gary, that he really cares about the show, but he doesn't want to die out here. And that's got to be when you're on a deserted island already, you know, you're away from what you know from like your life back home, and you have this issue where I'm assuming it's a broken rib just based on what Gary is saying, but then like something is happening where it makes you like struggle to take a deep breath. Like, you can imagine, even if you know what it is and you know you just need to rest for a few days, that is really concerning.
Yeah. As someone who has asthma and it's like, all I need is my inhaler and that most of the time will fix it, it's still real. Like, not being able to breathe is really scary.
Yes.
It's sort of an important part of being a human.
It's really difficult. I like to breathe, and I like to breathe regularly. So when that gets interrupted, it is not fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we Medical comes in. Luckily, they don't find anything too concerning, like anything where they would have to pull him out of the game, or like anything that would be like a condition that could be like serious or life threatening. So medical decides, and Gary decides, they're going to give it a day and see how he feels the next day, which leads to the immunity challenge. He is able to take the final point for Moto, and then sending Ravu to tribal council once again.
Right.
So we don't get anything. That's all of the drama revolved around Moto for this episode. We don't get a lot here about about like anything else, or really even a conclusion at this point about what could happen with Gary, whether this is going to lead to anything bigger, or if this is just kind of like a one-off episode that they use to cause a little bit of drama. But it's definitely something to look out for, and it's a very scary moment. You know, medical issues on Survivor, they're definitely a part of it, but they are never fun to watch, and it's very sad when they're a part of the episodes.
Yeah. We'll see what happens with Survivor 44, where apparently, you know, people are falling off of rocks and everyone's going to die. It looked extremely dramatic from the trailer that they showed at the finale.
Okay, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one, because I can't even remember the man's name, but the one that falls, like, presumably slips off of the rock wall.
It's the first thing they show you for Survivor 44. And I was like, this is some whiplash from like talking about what a great time everybody just had on Survivor 43. And now I think I'm watching a man fall to his death. And then we get one of those dramatic shots of like, everybody stop, and medical come in, and we see the cameras, and you know nothing bad things are happening if we're seeing the cameras on Survivor. So nothing that serious seems to be happening here yet. And as you had alluded to in a previous week, you know, they play up this montage of Boo injuries as if it's going to be this like big dramatic thing, and then it mostly is played for comedic relief in the real time. And we have another moment coming up where they're like, what's going on with Papa Smurf next week? And we shall see.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I just don't, it's a necessary evil in Survivor, in that just with the conditions that you have, there are going to be instances of medical concerns, medical emergencies, just because of what the game entails. But they're just never fun to see. I hate seeing people get pulled out of the game. So that is just like, that's one of the things. And Survivor 44 looks a mess, but in like the best way. So I'm very excited for that season. But my heart always hurts for the people that get pulled out, particularly because of medical situations, or when, like, in instances where people quit or were pulled from the game, like with Terry in Second Chances because of a medical issue of his son, or Jenna Marasco with her mom, and things like that. It's very sad when that happens. And there are some things that are completely out of contestants' control, but it's very sad to see when it happens, like, you know, have the impact of the game. It's just something that you wish never happened, but unfortunately is part of the show itself.
Yeah. It is tough, you know, because like it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to be on the show, but then sometimes other things come up that's like, you have to go be there, because that's a once in a lifetime moment in its own kind of way. Yeah. Not necessarily a positive one, but, you know, what are you going to do?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. But again, that's part of the struggle with things like this. Now we get to you know, so that's pretty much all we get of Moto here. And Ravu is once again going to tribal council after losing the delicacies challenge. And poor Sylvia is just, I know that she is in a very difficult spot and she really needs to find this idol. But girl, you are not doing yourself any favors, where she gets to they get back to camp. And in all fairness to Sylvia, she was not there right after the reward because she got sent to exile. But the first thing she says is how embarrassed she was about her performance in the reward challenge, which does not help.
Yeah, it's like, girl, we're past that.
Yes, we have moved on from the reward challenge. Like, you know, we are focusing on the now. And also, she did not win her portion of the challenge now. So while it almost gets tipped in her favor here, she really isn't helping to like push the scales either way.
Right.
Yeah. And you would think that she would be like playing up finding the idol, you know, like do something. Again, this is definitely talking about someone that has seen over 40 seasons of Survivor versus Sylvia, who was a recruit. So I can't be too harsh on her, but you know, we're talking about this in we are in the new school era of Survivor, talking about an old school season, and the old school season where we get this new idol format introduced to us. So I don't blame Sylvia too much, but for conversation's sake, I think it's important to look at maybe some of the ways that she could have at least lasted this vote.
Right.
Yeah. But it's very unfortunate. And we get almost a saving grace for Sylvia here because she kind of roasts herself in this episode, talking about how she's the oldest woman, she has the least amount of skills and things like that. I'm like, girl, you're an architect, like calm down.
Right. You built that other camp.
Yeah. So
you're not like, there, but you did build that camp.
They're really enjoying the camp you built, Sylvia, if it's any consolation to you.
Listen, just as a reminder, I directed the building of that other camp, and clearly it is doing them a lot of good. So maybe if you keep me around, we could help, you know, improve our circumstances here, make a shelter like they do on every other season. We could figure it out. Yeah, I could be your Boston Rob.
Oh yeah. Also, in the last episode, Sylvia was taught, one of Sylvia's pitches during Tribal Council was that she thought that, you know, something that would be beneficial to the tribe is if the next morning they elect a tribe leader, and that never happens. So like, we also don't have the energy to do that. So, you know, thanks for trying, but no, we will not be doing any of that. Thank you, Sylvia.
I will not be having that. Thank you.
Yes. Also, I don't think I could function in a camp with a tribe leader. That sounds like the most obnoxious thing to deal with.
Yeah, it's like, are we in summer camp? Am I in preschool? Like, what are we doing?
I know, and that is where I draw the line. Like, all right, I will eat octopus and giant clams if I must, and pig snouts and fish eyes. I draw the line at electing a camp leader. I refuse. Yeah. That is not how I function. They're probably going to elect a man, and I don't want to deal with that.
I'm just like not big on hierarchical dynamics in general.
Yeah, exactly. And
like, oh my God, Zed, stop talking.
And I just could not deal with that. But we don't see anything like that there. I think Ravu knew they were not going to do anything like that. And I don't think anyone on Ravu is particularly interested in being the leader anyway. They just want to win a challenge and vote each other out at this point. I think they're all just sick of each other. They're like trauma bonding right now at this point, because they don't have anything else to do.
Yeah. I mean, that's what sometimes can lead a tribe to turn around, though, right? In other seasons, you'll see that a tribe that's always winning does get sick of each other. They have no way to vent their frustrations. They're not going to tribal council. They're not able to like work out their conflicts or get rid of personalities that may be like rubbing the tribe the wrong way. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, the other tribe is like, we're going through this traumatic thing together and just like clinging to each other for dear life, hoping for the best, so that if they get even like a little inch, they can take a mile. This happens sometimes where tribes decide to throw a challenge to get rid of somebody, and then the tribe that was on the back foot suddenly has a little bit of momentum because they're like, oh, okay, we can do it. So, you know, it's maybe not all bad, hopefully.
I love when this happens too. Yeah. Like I love it because it's just, and this is the downside of being a successful tribe in Survivor, is that sometimes you'll want people on your tribe to leave. And especially with tribes of this size, because they have 2 tribes here. So it's nine on Moto to start, and eventually like 10 overall members on
Right.
Bravo, but 9 at a time. So they have, their so Ravu is kind of just going through the motions at this point, but with Moto, they haven't had to vote anyone out yet, and we haven't seen the tensions rise yet, but they're coming. I think we have
Yeah.
little hints of what's going to come, and it's definitely apparent here. So it's definitely a thing that is going to come up later, and their winning isn't everything. Sometimes it is really a detriment to your game.
Yeah, you could imagine that hanging around Boo, who is just like farting loudly all the time, it seems, could maybe start to wear on you a little bit being around that
Yeah.
24/7.
And the worst thing is, we haven't even seen some of the most annoying attributes of this tribe yet. So it
Yeah.
is coming. It is coming. And
It's like
Boo is
as the
not.
numbers shrink, the personalities get more
I
concentrated.
know. They're like, I guess we should show them what's happening on Moto at this point. But let me tell you, it is not great. They're speaking of not being a fan of hierarchical structures. We will have that discussion a later day, definitely. But so one of the things that I did want to say about this though is that once we get to Ravu, it's really coming down between Sylvia, who we see like Earl and Anthony and Michelle want to vote out, and then Anthony, who Rocky, Mookie, and Sylvia want to vote out. And Rita's kind of in the middle at this point. We don't see Yao Man in the strategy portion of this episode, which makes me very sad because like he must have an opinion on something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen him already clearly being a strategist in his aggressive hug come bag search moment. But we don't really hear from him in a strategic sense kind of after that, really.
Yeah. No, it is. It's interesting, especially so early into the season. I think he had a really good introduction to the cast with his moments in the premiere. So it just feels very odd that we have this character that had this great introduction. He's definitely had some moments in episodes 2 and 3, but not anything in the strategy portion of it yet. And his tribe is losing everything. So like you would think they would get his opinion at some point. But because that's when you get screen time, is when your tribe goes to tribal council. But we aren't seeing really much of him right now because of that.
Yeah, he is like such a character in his own way, but he's not a like loud character the way that like, Rocky is, for instance.
Yeah.
Like he's definitely a very specific kind of person, but that kind of person is not loud.
Yeah, definitely. He's not getting into fights with Boo at the
He's like, I'm just going to chop my coconuts with this really dull machete. I could do this a lot faster if you gave me a sharp knife, Survivor.
Yes.
But this is fine. I'll just do this.
That's what Yao Man has been having to deal with at this point. And it's very sad. But I am assuming he had an opinion about this. One of the things that I did want to point out here, because once again, we haven't really talked too much about the All Black Alliance in this episode yet. And it doesn't come up a lot here, in part because on Moto, we don't really see Dreams and Cassandra interact this episode outside of just the segments of Moto enjoying their tribe. So we just don't get they're just not the stars of this episode here. Whereas over on Ravu, one of the moments that really stuck out to me here was when Mookie had already gone to Rocky and said that they both agreed they wanted to get rid of Anthony. So they pitched this idea to Earl. And I don't know if you noticed that, but when he was talking to Earl about how Anthony really ticked him off with presumably his attitude during the challenge, Earl is just kind of mirroring his responses, but not really contributing anything to the conversation, where he's saying like, he's kind of chuckling and nodding along. And when the more Mookie goes into like his annoyances, his grievances at this point, Earl's just like, oh yeah, that irritates you, huh? And it's just kind of like, all right, I see what Earl is doing here in that, like, one, he's not even entertaining the idea of voting for Anthony at this point. And
right.
also he he clearly has established enough trust with Mookie here that he wants to that like Mookie feels comfortable telling him all of this information, but Earl himself is not actually contributing anything to the conversation or even saying that he's going to vote out Anthony here.
Right. Yeah, and I think based on some of the things that are being said, like attitude specifically, I think is a rather like triggering or kind of like dog whistly phrase. And it
Yeah.
comes up in the voting confessional later too, because at tribal council, they're talking about, your commitment to the tribe or whatever, and like whether you're trying hard enough or not. And then I can't remember if it's Rocky or Mookie who's like, it's not even about commitment, it's about your attitude. And I'm like, that is a wild thing to say, first of all.
Yeah.
And not something that I think anybody would say in the modern era, but certainly not something that we would get shown in the modern era, because it feels so icky.
Yeah, and Anthony also made a really good point in the the actual tribal council, and I think that Anthony is a very resilient player, so I really enjoy him in this episode as well. But he's basically saying that you're only mad at me for supposedly like my contribution to the game, that fact that I didn't win or things like that, but like he's not the only person that was not able to
Right. They didn't lose
perform.
5-4.
Yeah, exactly. So like this is not just Anthony is not good at challenges. It is the tribe is not delivering in advantages, probably because of all the reasons we discussed earlier, but for some reason you're only mad at Anthony.
Right. Like Rocky and Mookie did both win, so like they do have that leg to stand on.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Sylvia lost, Earl lost, Michelle lost, and Anthony lost.
Yeah.
So it's not Anthony lost the losing point, but it takes several other failures to get there. It's not single-handedly his fault.
Yeah, exactly. He did not lose the challenge for Rabu. And even if he did, we see people lose the challenges for their tribe all the time and not get voted out,
Yeah, and so it's not necessarily for a lack of trying.
Yeah. Yeah, and like we have said, the dehydration that they are facing is probably a big reason why they lost that challenge.
Right.
Yeah. So I do find it interesting. That was really the only point I had in regards to the Black Alliance this episode, is that we do still see Earl having Anthony's back here, and it doesn't seem to have, there's no consideration on Earl's part to vote out Anthony. And Earl has a pretty good group around him as well. Michelle seems pretty locked in to vote for Sylvia as well. Again, we haven't seen much from Yao Man in the strategy portions, but he also ends up voting for Sylvia. So I don't think this was a particularly difficult decision for him. Maybe it was, and we just didn't see it. But I feel like if it was, we probably would have seen something from that at some point. And then the one holdout here is Rita, who does not want to vote for Anthony or Sylvia. So she says she's going to do something completely different. Move along to tribal council. I don't think we have to get into like the actual tribal council. And she votes for Earl for no reason.
Why? Like, listen, I understand you don't want to vote for either of these people, but if you know that those are the two people getting votes, you have to make a choice. Like, yes, you can throw a hinky vote, but then you kind of don't have a leg to stand on later on in the game as like someone who's making moves and driving decisions or being a part of the majority even. You're just floating along, trying not to not make decisions or cause any trouble.
Yes, and especially with, so this is a 4-4, or sorry, not 4-4. This is a potentially a 4-4 vote split if Rita voted out here, which could have, I don't know what the tiebreaker would be in this instance here, but it could lead to some other complicated feelings moving forward as well. And then, but then also, like, with the way that you voted now, you just kind of, in a way, voted for Sylvia without actually contributing to the vote, or like pledging your allegiance to that group of people. Like, you want to distance yourself a bit, but then also why? If your vote is either going to tie the votes or ensure that Sylvia is going to go, I assume that you just go with the position that isn't going to turn into a tie.
Right.
Yeah, so that part was a little odd. I think it seems like what we have seen from Rita so far is that she gets along with pretty much everyone, as far as we know, on Ravu. And my guess is that she voted for Earl because she didn't want to vote for, just to like throw away a vote, and not because she thought that Earl had a chance of going home. She just didn't want to vote for Anthony or Sylvia, and she knew that Earl wasn't going to go home here. But it's just a very odd move at this point, and I don't see really how this could benefit her in the long term.
Yeah, it's something you can't imagine happening in a modern season because,
Yeah.
like, the worst thing you can be is like not aware of where the votes are going,
Yeah.
and that's even worse than like being on the losing side of the vote, is to just not be in on what's happening at all.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be better, say there was one more person and she wasn't the tying vote, but
Mm-hmm.
it would have been better to vote for Anthony and for Sylvia to still be the person who goes than to just throw your vote out and like waste it. It's like, well, then why
Yeah.
bother other than
Yeah,
if you have to?
it just doesn't make her seem like an ally that people are going to want in the future, because when it comes to making these difficult decisions, like, you might not want to side with me. So if you might not be with me later on, why would I keep you around now when I have in this case, there was a core group of 4 that was able to solidify their votes to vote out Sylvia.
Yeah, it's like by having everybody's back, you have nobody's back. Like, you have
Yeah.
to pick a side at this point and like stick with your people.
Yeah.
Otherwise, no one's going to be there for you because you didn't vote with a group. You've not built trust with anybody. You're just, out here on your own throwing names out there.
Yeah. So I'm very interested to see whether there's any reaction to the throwaway vote when we get into episode 4. If we even hear anything about like her reasoning for why she decided to vote.
Yeah, because we didn't this episode.
Yeah, we just knew she said she wanted to do something different, but it didn't really contribute anything to the result of this vote. It just,
Right.
again, for all the reasons you said before, is, in trying to please everybody, she's going to please nobody with this choice.
Yeah. By doing something different, you need to mean, okay, I have a target and I'm going to rally people behind me to vote out the person I want to vote out.
Yeah.
Not, I'm going to stand over, I'm going to essentially abstain from the vote.
Yeah.
By
and I don't
putting a random name out there.
Yeah, and I don't think she necessarily wanted to get rid of Earl here. Like, I don't think
it doesn't
whether or
seem
not
like
she,
it. It didn't seem like that there was any intention or like action
yeah,
behind it to make it the outcome. It was
yeah,
just maybe that's the person she thought would be the least mad at her
yeah,
if she wrote his name down. I don't know.
yeah. But I'm assuming that like Earl is not going to take that well.
I mean, who would?
I know, right? I would not be thrilled with it. Very Survivor 42, where Romeo just voted for High to make him mad. That's still one of my favorite votes.
Yeah, or Carla's vote for
Jesse,
so he wouldn't have a perfect game.
That's also hilarious. More petty votes, please, but like a petty vote with purpose.
Right.
Because those votes actually achieved something, even if it was just, I wanted to make this person mad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. but I still love it. It's great. Great work here. But so with that, Sylvia was voted out 4-3-1 this episode, with votes for Sylvia being Earl, Michelle, Yowman, and Anthony. Mookie, Rocky, and Sylvia voting for. Oh wait, did I say vote for Anthony first or?
No, you said votes for Sylvia first,
Okay.
but Anthony was the last vote for Sylvia.
Yeah, okay. Yes. All right. Yes. All right. And then Mookie, Rocky, and Sylvia all voted for Anthony, and then Rita voted for Earl. So Sylvia is out of the game after a very rough start. And girl, like Rob Queen here, but I kind of love her final words, which are, "So I have been had, and I'm not too happy about it. I actually really, really liked the entire group of both tribes because we have 3 days to get to know everybody. And I'm not that angry or resentful right now. I'm just looking forward to seeing them after they claw each other's eyes out later on." Yes, Sylvia, that is the kind of confessionals that we want to see. Where was this petty behavior during the show? I love it. I love it. Oh, Sylvia, if you're out there, I hope you know I appreciate you.
This is the woman. That woman needed to get people on her side.
Yes.
She just needed to convince one more person to vote for Anthony. And if it was anybody other than Rita, then the numbers would have been flipped.
I know. I'm wondering if... So I don't actually know the answer to this, but something to ponder. I'm wondering if people are kind of aware of tribe dynamics. Like, as far as voting go, it seems to be that Anthony, Michelle, Earl, and Yowman are a core 4 in this alliance. And part of the reason Erica was voted out last episode is because Earl was not there. And we know, because this is part of the reason we're doing this podcast, is that Fiji has an all Black alliance. So Earl and Anthony are aligned here. But I'm wondering if Michelle or Yowman feel like particularly close to Anthony, if they would have considered voting out Anthony over Sylvia if she had a chance to make her case. I don't know, but it's a possibility.
Or if they just don't want to be associated with Rocky and Mookie, they're like, if my team could be this person or these people, who would I choose?
This is true. Yeah. If Earl hasn't really made any waves right now, he seems to be a relatively chill person, and I can understand the appeal of going with that crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, that just seems like a very calming group of 4 right there.
Yeah, I would definitely rather hang out with Earl, Michelle, Yowman, and Anthony than Mookie and Rocky.
I would honestly love to hang out with those 4. Dream blunt rotation right there.
I would like to watch other people hang out with Mookie and Rocky. I would not like to be a part of that situation.
Oh, yes. When it's on TV, it's very entertaining. I want to see Rocky fight more people on the other tribe during challenges. But that's it. That's it, Rocky. That's it. You can argue with Boo about integrity, and that's it. That's all I will allow you.
That's right.
Yes. But now we have come to the end of this episode. And Zed, I have our list of awards for the end of the episode.
Yes.
So we will go through each one. We can each pick our favorites for our favorite confessionals and the funniest moment, but we will have a consensus about who wins the episode together. So I just want to ask, what was your favorite confessional of this episode?
My favorite confessional was definitely Michelle talking as she was making the fire. And she was like, and then I started praying because I know my mom is not going to let me die out here. She's just like so confident and bubbly, and like what a fun person to have on the show, and it's exciting to see her succeed in this moment. And clearly she's so proud of herself, as she has every right to be, and I just thought that confessional was very fun.
Yeah, honestly, I'm going to go with the same one because I actually really enjoyed that one, and I feel like there weren't a ton of standout confessionals this episode. Yeah, I do love, I'm not counting Sylvia's final words, but that's definitely would also be in the running if it was an actual confessional. All right, Zed, funniest moment.
It might be I think the moment that made me laugh the most was the sound effect on Anthony's eyebrow raise
Yes.
at Papa Smurf as they were staring each other down at the start of their immunity challenge moment face off.
I love that. It's such a specific answer.
It
And
really
it's
stood out to me. I
but it's
love when
amazing.
Survivor editing does like great little sound effects with what's happening on the show.
So true. I love things like that. I think uh this is the perfect answer for this. Anthony's eyebrow raised while facing Papa Smurf. If anyone has not watched Survivor Fiji, these notes look very weird. But I'm going to put the slip and slide challenge. I don't have a particularly favorite moment. I just think as a whole, it was just a treasure trove of fantastic moments.
Yeah, a lot of funny walks.
Oh my God. Yeah. Everything about it. I just wish they did more things like that in this season. It's like, it's funny and they're clearly having a difficult time, but it's like lighthearted, difficult time, you know, like they're not suffering, but they are certainly going through it in that challenge.
But it's definitely funnier than other times when they've done this challenge where they're taking it like super, maybe it's heroes, villains, and they're just like so competitive. So they're taking it so seriously. Yeah. And James is all oiled up. So that's not funny. That's very serious.
Yes. I take that very seriously.
There's a very serious tone when you see an oiled up James on your TV. But yeah, this was a very fun, silly challenge compared to a lot of things, especially in modern Survivor, I feel like.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is a very comical cast, and I think they are pretty good at slapstick humor, as we will see moving forward. Now, Zed, the big award of the day. Who wins the episode?
Gosh. That's so hard.
I have someone in mind, but I want to hear your take first if you are thinking of anything.
I almost want to say Michelle because she made fire out of nothing, which Jeff points out very few survivors have ever done up to that point. And she votes in the numbers. She's keeping the people that are in her alliance ostensibly. We don't really see a whole lot of talk about alliance versus, you know, who's with me, who's not with me on these votes this early in the game, or perhaps this early in Survivor in general. But I feel like Michelle had a really good, she didn't eat the fish eyes, whatever, you know. I feel like Michelle had a very good episode. And maybe it's weird to pick someone from the losing tribe, but like, what did we see of Moto? Like nothing.
Oh no, we've only been picking people. So the premiere episode, Moto as a whole was the winners of the episode, specifically because they got the nice camp, and it was really hard to pick a winner from Bravo, and obviously it was not going to be Sylvia because that twist sucked for her.
Yeah.
But then last episode was Mookie because of his role in the Erica vote. He was the winner. And again, part of the reason is because we don't really see anything from Moto, you know, not anything that would make me think they are the clear victors of the episode. But I'm glad you said Michelle, because that is also who I was thinking. She didn't win in the challenge, but I don't think she need to. I think making fire, voting correctly, being on the side of the numbers, just having a pretty strong edit this episode. I think that is, if there is a winner to be had on Bravo, I think Michelle very clearly comes out on top here.
Yeah, making fire is like a huge morale boost for the tribe, even if it doesn't ultimately lead them to win either of the challenges. Michelle has kind of given them their first real win in its own way, and that's huge. Yeah.
And I would also say, I think losing both she lost both her rounds in the reward challenge and the immunity challenge, but to do both of those and still not be a target, I love that for her.
Especially as a woman.
Especially as a woman, as a smaller woman too.
Like clearly she has the social capital.
Yes. So and this is a tribe where women are getting voted out a lot. So the fact that she's now one of two left, that is so depressing. But she is one of two women left on this tribe. So I think this is pretty good. Michelle, I think, is in a really great spot here.
Yeah, I would
All
agree.
right. Congratulations to Michelle. You are the third winner of Survivor Fiji, the winner of episode 3, as we will say. Zed, thank you so much for joining me on this recap, because it's just been so much fun, and I'm so happy that you wanted to be a part of this and that you were available to do this episode. So thank you for so much time to join me.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I am excited to finally have gotten to talk about Survivor in depth on a podcast, because I do have like all this knowledge in my brain somewhere and thoughts about strategy and things, and it's nice to be able to get to talk about it with you.
I'm so glad you said that, because we'll definitely have to have you on for the Survivor 44
Oh,
episode,
please,
for like
yes.
Survivor 44 episodes when we start doing recaps for those. So we will be in touch, definitely.
Absolutely. Cannot wait.
All right. All right. Now, where can people follow you? And is there anything that you'd like to promote?
Sure. You can find me at Hard Rock Hope on Twitter or anywhere else, including on Twitch, twitch.tv/Hard Rock Hope, where I am always playing mostly Final Fantasy, occasionally other things. And I am covering Final Fantasy on post show recaps. Very shortly, I will be covering another video game, maybe tying into a big TV show coming up soon for folks who are following the video game television space. You probably know what I'm talking about. But otherwise, that's about it for me right now. I've been busy working and not getting to do quite as many podcasts of late. Hopefully that's going to change here in 2023, but Final Fantasy is where it's at right now, and you can hang out with me on Twitch. It's fun. I'm not very good at video games. I'm just there to have a good time.
I'm also not very good at video games, but that's okay. You know,
Yeah.
I can't be good. I can't be a good podcaster and be good at video game. You know, like some people can do that, but I certainly cannot. And of course, here come the YouTube comments like, you're not a good podcaster.
Oh
Well,
no,
shut up.
stop it.
Yes. Well, shut up. I am. I'm wonderful. And positive affirmations only in 2023.
That's right.
Yes. All right. And you can follow me at Classically Gia for all of my regular TV shenanigans. I have changed all my handles so that they are all now Classically Gia. So you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok now. I have one video about Fiji specifically, and that's it. So I'm a very easy listen to here. And right now, Abbott Elementary is back. It's actually going to be premiering soon for the second half of this season. So Chappelle and I will be back on post-show recaps doing our bi-weekly coverage of Abbott Elementary, except for the premiere. The premiere we will be doing singularly, as well as the finale. So we will be back very soon with new content on Abbott Elementary, and I'm so excited to hear that it's back. All of my regular coverage on Survivor can be found here on Silent Podcast. Once Survivor 44 premieres on March 1st, we will be back into the swing of things with our coverage, and I'm very excited for that moving forward. But all of my regular updates with like Inside Survivor and Survivor 44 will be happening then. And I don't really have anything else to promote right now. Oh, I do have some
like
other.
A lot.
I know it does, but like now I have the speech like in my head permanently. Like it's just like a permanent fixture in there. So I feel like there's more I have to say. I do have some projects coming out soon, but they haven't been announced yet. So I will say just keep an eye out on those things. And as always, make sure you follow the the Survivor Diversity campaign on Twitter at Serve Diversity. That's at SURV Diversity. Thank you all so much for once again following along our journey to rewatch Survivor Fiji, and thank you for listening to Fiji Forever. We will be back very soon with our episode 4 recap, so stay tuned. And thank you all again for supporting our humble podcast.